Here's an email we got from Chad. Does the Bible really teach that everyone is a sinner? Is this only true for unbelievers? Or is it fair to say that Christians are also sinners?
Right, yeah. Well, the Bible teaches everyone's a sinner, even Christians. We have to distinguish between civil righteousness and heart righteousness. So civil righteousness, what do we mean by that? Well, that's the righteousness that I respect in you and other people. I can say that this non-Christian over here is a good person. Sometimes we say, well, how can God send that person to hell and yet accept me when that person's better than I am? When we compare ourselves to each other, of course there are varying degrees of sinners and righteous. But in God's sight, we're all sinners. Before others, there are varying degrees. Before God, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Paul even says in Romans 2:14 that Gentile pagans who don't have God's written law, they don't have the Bible, but they do, by nature, many of the things in the law. Gandhi was a good person. In many ways, he was a better person than I am. But he's no closer to God because he did some wonderful things for a lot of people. Before God, all of us are in the same boat, and that boat is headed for disaster. We need to be redeemed. We need to be saved. In Romans 3, after Paul has shown that even the Jews, not just the Gentiles, but the Jews are also condemned by the law. The Jews are naughty when he's talking about the Gentiles being idolaters and doing all kinds of immoral things. The Jews are nodding, saying, yeah, go get them, Paul. Those debauched Gentiles, we have God's law. But then he turns to the Jews and says, oh, you say we have God's specially revealed law. That just makes you even more guilty because you don't do what the law requires. By the way, God is telling us that today, I think. There's so much hypocrisy in Christian circles right now out there in the world. No wonder the world is hostile, becoming one of the reasons the world is becoming more hostile towards Christians is because Christians are setting themselves up in the public square as being more righteous than others, and yet doing things that not even the Gentiles do. But saying, oh, but we have Judeo-Christian ethics and we have the Bible. Well, Paul says that you're in more trouble because you don't do what the law requires. In fact, God's name is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. So sadly, I think that could be said about a lot of Christianity in America today. But, in Romans 3, Paul clinches his argument thus far. What then, are the Jews any better off? No, not at all. For we have already charged that all, both us Jews and Greeks, are under sin. As it is written, none is righteous, no, not one. No one understands, no one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good. No, not even one. Paul, it's funny. No one does good. Okay, that's hyperbole. Paul said, no, not even one. But then in verse 19, he says, now we know that whatever the law says, it speaks to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be stopped, and the whole world may be held accountable to God. To shut us up, to basically say, stop chattering, stop defending yourself, stop making excuses. For by works of the law, no human being will be justified in God's sight, since through the law comes knowledge of sin. So that's the law. If this is all God had said to us, we'd be in a mess, but it's not. There's the gospel, as Paul continues beginning at verse 21. But now the righteousness of God has been manifested apart from the law, although the law and the prophets bear witness to it. The righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ for all who believe. For there is no distinction. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and are justified by his grace as a gift through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus, whom God put forward as a propitiation by his blood to be received by faith. I mean, that is absolutely marvelous. Now the righteousness that we have is not the common, what we think of righteousness, this person's better than that person. The righteousness we have is Christ's complete obedience to every word spoken by his Father, to every command. We are credited with the perfect righteousness of Jesus Christ, and it's all a free gift that we receive simply by receiving it, simply through faith, embracing this gift. What good news that is for all of us. So if we look on the outside of the cup, it may seem clean, or it may seem dirty. But really, all of us are filled with defilement inside, and we need forgiveness, we need justification, and we need cleansing. And we don't just need that in the past, we need that now, because we are still sinners saved by grace.
That's right. There's that great phrase that came out of the Reformation, simul justus et peccator, the fact that we're simultaneously just, as you talked about that there, Mike, with the righteousness of Jesus Christ. And yet at the same time, we can still say that even as Christians, we're sinners.
Yeah.
The only thing that grants us acceptance before a holy God is the righteousness of Christ. We still fail and struggle, but God is working in us, cleansing us day by day.